Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about the NFL issue with grass versus turf fields and the safety for the players. So basically what's come down to is the NFL and the NFLPA have been battling it out saying that, which one's safer, turf or grass, or is it the same? And basically the NFL owners are basically saying that, oh, well, our data shows that it's just as safe to be on turf as it is grass. But the problem is they won't share that data that they have. All the other data that we've seen shows that turf is not nearly as safe when it comes to knee, foot, and ankle injuries. And it's pretty substantial here. And there was one year in 2021 where the data showed that it was very close to the same. But that was kind of an outlier year. Every other year, grass has had less non-contact injuries. So players just running along and they tear something. They tear their ACL, they hurt their ankle, their foot, whatever it might be. You got owners out here like Jerry Jones. He said that, it's pretty much the same. Like he's come out publicly and said our data shows that it's the same. But if the NFL is not sharing the data with us that they have, then how are we supposed to trust that? How are we supposed to trust what the owners are saying? How much safer is grass though than turf when it comes to like non-contact injuries? So, and what I mean by non-contact injuries is that's where like a player's just running along and no one touches him. He's just making like a cut and then he hurts himself. So it's anywhere between 15 to 28%, depending upon the years you're looking at, and the range, and depending what the study is. But that's a pretty big difference. If you can decrease the chances of your like star players getting hurt by 15 to 20%, you think you'd want to take those odds. Now, why does this happen? Well, there's actually a great study done that you can see in the National Library of Medicine, and they did a really cool study where they took like somebody with a prosthesis leg and then had them run with it. It had a force gauge where the knee joint would be at, because this was a below the knee amputee that was running, and he was doing all the cuts and everything, and they could measure the pressure difference between the grass field and the turf field and how much peak force was put on those joints. So they actually could measure the force that they're feeling from turf to grass. And the study showed that it was substantial amount of force increase for those players. Think of turf like almost like a basketball field, right? If you throw a basketball down on a basketball court, it's going to bounce back up at you, right? But if you throw it on like your carpet in your house, it's not going to bounce up as high. So that's kind of how grass and turf is. It's not that extreme, but that's just kind of like the idea behind it, that it pushes back harder when you push a force into it. It's actually really interesting because it also, if you got to think about the concussion protocol and how that works with it, because if you hit the turf with your head, that's going to increase it more with turf than you would with grass, because the grass is actually going to have a little bit more give when a player hits his head on the ground. I mean, if we think back to the concussion that everyone remembers last year was when Tua got a concussion, right? Now, this is just something to think about. It's not to say, oh, this definitely proves this, because we don't know the exact force that Tua hit the ground with. But when Tua hit his head the first time he got his first concussion, that was on grass. And he still got a concussion from it. But he's able to get up. He stumbled a little bit, but he was able to walk to the locker room. The next time, when he was with the Bengals on their turf field, he hit the ground and he was knocked out to where his fingers got like locked up. I mean, that's much harder. Now, it could have been more of a force, but maybe if it was grass, maybe it wouldn't have been as severe as a concussion. So it just would make sense that if the NFL really wants to protect their players, they're going to put them on something that has a softer impact or an increased deceleration time for the players in their heads. So it's just something like, if the NFL really cares about safety, why are they not wanting to do grass instead? Even the American Academy of Pediatrics has gotten into this, because what they did was they looked at all the high school football players and they realized that 15% of concussions occurred by the players hitting their head on the ground. So what they did was they measured the impact of the force when you hit the ground around the same weight. Basically, they just took a weight and dropped it down from like the different sides, from the side, the front, and the back. And what they found is, except for the sides, when you fall on the frontal part of your helmet or the back side of your helmet, substantial difference with the amount of force that you get hit back with turf as opposed to grass. So it was just supporting the hypothesis that you'll most likely have a less severe or less concussions with hitting grass than you would obviously turf. The NFL should be concerned about this because they had 149 concussions in just 271 games in the NFL last year. That's a lot. I mean, you're talking almost every other game. Well, actually, more than every other game, there's a concussion. Even if the NFL owners want to deny that, grass and turf are about the same, it's not that big of a deal, why would the world's biggest sport with soccer, all their players refuse to play on turf? Because they know it's not safe. It's bad for their bodies. It's not good for their knees, their ankles, or their feet. And that's the number one thing soccer players need. And this is being extremely hypocritical. The NFL owners, to get the World Cup games to their stadiums, are willing to switch their fields to grass over turf. So they're willing to do it for other players in the sake of money and bringing it in, but not for their own players that they care about. It's pretty ridiculous. And so we talked about the injuries for the knees, ankles, and feet, and we also talked about concussions. But also there's kind of like an alarming study that's going on. So there's this study that was done by Yale that found like there's like 306 chemicals inside turf. So out of all those, 52 have carcinogens in them. And there's been a recent study that showed that 6 Phillies baseball players all died from a similar rare cancer, and they believed it was linked to the turf field there. And also at Washington State, these soccer players keep ending up with the same rare cancer and dying. And it's like, okay, like if turf is actually going to start leading to big health issues like cancer, maybe the NFL should be proactive and get away from this before it becomes a huge ordeal, because you don't want to have these lawsuits on you later. Not to mention, you just want to have the safety of the players. And I will admit, I like turf fields. I like the way they look. I like running on them. It always feels good. It's like such like a flat, even surface. I personally like them. But for the NFL players and everybody's safety, it's like we might as well do grass. The biggest thing that the NFL owners don't like is that if they don't do grass, then it's less maintenance on the field. So that's a pro for them. And then they also can do other things with the stadium. They can have like concerts and things like that and have it ready to go. If you do that with grass, your field might not be ready, and you have to meet like certain standards for your games. So it just seems like money is the bottom line, but the players really should take this in a bigger deal. And this seems like something strike-worthy to me. It's their safety, it's their livelihood, and I think they can make this happen. I mean, honestly, it really only takes pretty much 15 guys to make this difference. And what I mean by that is if you had the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL all stand up and said, we're not going to play unless all the fields are changed, NFL owners are going to listen. There's no way they're going to have a league without Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. Like if all these guys teamed up and just called each other, it's only 15 guys that have to get together and agree on this. If they do that, the rest of the league's going to follow. Okay, you get your big name guys in there and they do that, everyone's going to follow suit. And it's going to force the NFL owners' hands. But that's just a situation with grass versus turf. What do you guys think about it? Do you guys think all the owners should switch it to grass, or do you not agree and you think, well, there should be more studies for more turf? If it's safer, it's just as good. Or if they can make modifications to the turf to make it safer. And I really do think all NFL teams should switch their fields to grass to decrease lower extremity injuries, to decrease the amount of concussions, if not at least the severity of them, and then also maybe decrease the chances of anybody having this whole cancer ordeal. You don't want to be involved with turf fields all of a sudden causing cancer. So I think more studies need to be done on that with the cancer thing. But it's just, I'm seeing these warning signs, and it's a little worrisome about the turf fields. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment down below. If you guys like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next title. Ready, break!